programming and life experience and modelling and all that stuff, conditioning, it all interferes with our expressing the beauty of our souls. Let's get into the nitty-gritties of what the messy, ugly stuff looks like. Welcome to Authentik Union Podcast. I'm Jocasta.
I'm Krzysiek.
As you can see, we're currently in bed. It's quite late and we were heading for sleep, and I had a bit of a tricky situation with my 5-year-old not wanting to sleep and a unpleasant situation to deal with my 14-year-old, and I came down to bed feeling like an utter, total, complete fuck up. And I sat at the on the edge of my bed, and I went through my usual process of trying to bring myself out of that victim mentality. And what that usually looks like, and is often quite effective, is to walk the steps of how to get back to self-appreciation and clarity of self. Because I think at our bare bones, we're all pretty decent human beings, and we've all got beautiful souls. And programming and life experience and modelling and all that stuff, conditioning, it all interferes with our expressing the beauty of our souls quite often. And so for me, I often remind myself of some of the horrific things that I've experienced, some of the abuse that I've suffered from a very young age right through to present day, some of the hurdles that I've overcome, and for whatever reason, that wasn't working for me today. And I laid on the bed, and Krzysiek said to me, "Let me know when you're ready for a cuddle," and fully aware that I was in victim mentality, but the thought still formed in my head was like, I'm not worthy of one. And
Of course you are.
And me, in my infinite wisdom, thought, what a great idea for a podcast. Let's get into the nitty-gritties of what the messy, ugly stuff looks like. And maybe I can give a live example of what shadow work looks like, and a certain element of shadow work anyway. For context, I've touched on this. It's not something I'm proud of, and it's not something I particularly like talking about, but it's something I've never really shied away from talking about either, because I think it's important. And that is that I have in many ways been quite an abusive mother, in many different ways actually, and I can say that mostly without shame. Tonight, not so easily, because I understand psychology, I understand modelling, I understand overwhelm, and I didn't choose an easy path through this particular incarnation. But when my 5-year-old is being particularly challenging at bedtime and I end up shouting at her, whilst also having my 14-year-old tell me in no uncertain terms that she believes I'm still an abusive mother and this is still an unhealthy environment for children, while simultaneously glorifying a family member that has committed pretty horrific atrocities against myself and also some of my children. It's left me feeling a little bit, a lot low and foggy and disconnected from self. So one of the things that we were talking about, this was laying down, and you said to me, I asked you why you loved me, because of feeling completely worthless in that moment and having that victim mentality so heavy in my consciousness. And
I said I love you for being you.
Which felt like a cop out at the time.
Yeah, but that's the truth. And there's so many layers to you. And like I said, you are not a perfect human being. I am not. No one is perfect human being, but you are perfect for me.
Yeah. And you said that I'm the most honest person
you
you
are
know.
The most honest person, the most accepting.
And that's the bit that got me. And I think that's the bit that made me think, do you know what, let's do a podcast on this, because I'm probably the most accepting person I know and have come across as well. And I genuinely am. And there's not a person alive that I wouldn't be able to accept. And I'm not suggesting I'd be choosing to hang around with dangerous folk, but I'd understand and accept them.
Yes, because you know from your own life experience what outer circumstances can create in human psyche, right?
And I realised that I'm only as accepting as I am because I've had to be on my own journey for self-love. I've had to understand the inevitability of all things in order to be able to love myself in spite of some of my own atrocities and some of my own abhorrent behaviour, and understanding and unpacking my own programming and my own modelling. And so I'm feeling it right now, that heaviness and that cloud and that darkness beginning to lift, because I am once again reminded that everything is inevitable. Everyone is inevitable. And something that I personally believe to be an indisputable fact is that we are all, every single one of us, inevitable products of parameters outside of our control. And we are all doing the very best we can with what we have.
Yeah. In my view, it's like our psyches are that. And obviously in this life we very often follow the mind, right? And that's where all the programming is. And yeah, there is no magic button that switches it off and resets to the factory settings when we come here and we are still pure and innocent without any programming. Although we already have programming anyway, because we are programmed in our genome. Yeah, but there's no conscious programming, at least. Yeah. Because subconscious is not yet kind of communicating with the conscious behavior, right?
So anybody out there struggling and feeling worthless, I promise you, and I'm talking to myself as I say this to everybody else as well, I promise you that you are worthy. And I promise you that anything unpleasant about yourselves, it was always inevitable. And
that's for a reason.
Absolutely.
Specific reason.
Yeah. And I invite you to find compassion for yourself. Because let's face it, none of us want to be abusers. None of us want to be shit friends and crap mothers and poor housekeepers. And None of us want to be nasty. None of us want to be bullies.
And the opposite of spectrum as well. None of us wants to be abused. None of us wants to be, on the receiving end of the violence and abuse.
Yeah.
But also, this is to many people dicey territory, because it kind of falls under the victimhood and blaming. That when we just operate from our mind, then obviously we see life as very unjust. Yeah, we see injustice everywhere, and that's true on human level. It's injustice, violence, terror is everywhere.
Yeah.
The same with the opposite emotions and feelings. But when we look at the spectrum of the whole humanity through the lens of the creator, the source energy, then everything is perfect the way it is. Because some of us decided to learn how to come back to love from being the abuser. Some of us came here to choose to be abused and chose that path to come back to unconditional love. And those things are difficult to understand to human psyche, because the role of human psyche is protection of the physical vessel, which is the body. And in results of that, it creates the notion of separation, and the human psyche is not really equipped to function as a multi-sensory awareness, what the soul is. It's kind of like it's like this virtual reality headset, that we just see what we see, what we think, and obviously what we think is programmed into our mind by our experience, and then the meaning we make from experiences we have.
One thing that I've just sort of changing. I just remembering as well that it's really, really important that we don't fall into the trap of spiritual bypassing, and that we feel what's coming up. There is a fine line between sitting in victim mentality whilst also getting out of victim mentality, but first actually feeling what is coming up. And that is something that I really feel called to invite people to do a bit more, because right now I'm gonna wrap this up soon, I think, because I need to have a really good cry, and I need to actually remember that I have been through an incredible amount, and that I am worthy of compassion, and actually it's quite healthy for that to come from me first and foremost, and I'm worthy of the understanding and acceptance that I give others, and the love as well. And this has been a difficult journey, but one of my favourite sayings is that it is not pain that causes our suffering, it is our resistance to it.
The meaning we put into the experiences.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go and feel my pain.
And remember that you are love that is dressed into the human flesh.
Meat suit.
Yeah, exactly. And that meat suit is equipped with the psyche, which only cares about the survival itself and of the body, right?
Yeah. And just as a one of the things I did want to touch on, actually, I'm just going to wrap this up, but as this is centered around shadow work, I wanted to actually just touch in a little bit as to what that actually is. And the way this was explained to me, and I think this differs from a lot of spiritual folks, when I've heard people talk about shadow work, it's not necessarily how I viewed it. So for me, what it means, a psychologist, a very good one actually, told me a few years ago that every single human on the planet, and it is part of the human condition, we can't escape the fact of it, and that is that every single one of us, to an extent, has an elevated sense of self. There's a part of our psyche, our ego, that believes us to be better than we actually are. So that what happens then is that behaviours, actions, thoughts, deeds, all of that jazz that does not align with that higher sense of self gets sort of compartmentalized and stored in a part of our psyche that we don't have regular access to.
It's like unconscious.
It is deeply unconscious, and that
it's
is
mythical underworld.
Exactly. And that is exactly that, and that is our shadow self. So for me, shadow work has always looked like actually loving and accepting myself, and I find that when I move a little bit deeper into self-love and a little bit deeper into self-acceptance, what happens is my psyche then relaxes a little bit and thinks, oh, well, she can have this bit back. And then I suddenly have this awareness come over me, and I'm like, oh, lordy. Beautifully, I'm at a level of self-love and self-acceptance where I don't tend to spiral into a load of self-loathing and self-judgment, and I'm usually quite grateful, although a bit like cringed out sometimes for the awareness. So anybody just starting out and embarking on shadow work, my advice to you from personal experience, and obviously everybody has different things that work for them, but for me, and my advice would be, start with self-love. Go through all of the stuff in you that you like, and try and be as honest with yourself as you're doing it. See yourself as clearly as you are able in that moment, and love yourself fiercely and accept yourself fiercely. That's always a good place to start. So thank you for watching, if you have. I'm now going to go and have a big fat cry.
Okay, before we wrap up,
Sorry.
so 2 more minutes. So to me, shadow work is very connected to emotions and emotional triggers. So everything that we don't want to look into, that is in our psyche, that, like you said, doesn't align with the persona that we project into the world to be accepted, and like this kind of like face, like a facade, right? Everything that is not aligned with that is stored in that unconscious mind, but experiences or events, or people, words and behaviors that we encounter that remind our psyche of the similar experiences from the past, they kind of like ignite those memories, ignite those like pains and wounds that are stored in the unconscious, and they are being brought to the light. But and that is why we have such strong emotional reactions to certain things, because we don't want to consciously look at those things. We are very often not even aware
we project
of
it onto the whoever we're with, rather than seeing it within ourselves.
And we very often just in that moment we have the that's the opportunity to become aware of that thing being the part of me, which until now I haven't been able to even look at, or I've forgotten on purpose, because it was too painful to look at, and my psyche decided that it was not safe to go there. But when those things come up, then that's the opportunity to do shadow work, because that's the like part of your shadow is being brought to light. And once you actually acknowledge that part of you, okay, I get triggered by this, let me think where that comes from. That may be coming from, I used to have similar experiences with I don't know, when I was a child, or earlier on in life, doesn't matter when, and therefore we have the opportunity to do something about it. Once we bring that to light, then that part of shadow is integrated already. It may have deeper layers, because that can be very complex, right? But and on the other hand, if we ignore that, and we just keep projecting and blaming others for bringing that, because that's what we kind of blame others, right, for bringing that out to the light, to our awareness, and that's still painful for us. That's why we still don't want to look at it very often when we are not ready. So just wanted to add that for me, shadow work is also connected to that. It's quite you can go about shadow work in many different ways. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
Thank
You're welcome. I think I am done.
you. Okay. Right. What about that cry?
Yeah, you want to cry in front of the camera?
No, I think we'll save that. I'm an ugly crier. It's not on all sorts. It's not a good look.
Written a poem. I am a happy cry.
Well, darling, much as we are united with our similarities, we are also made more interesting by our differences. Definitely an ugly crier. Ciao for now.
Ciao for now.